Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Scrutiny Programme Committee. I'm going to start by asking people to introduce themselves in the room for those who are online, which is most of you. So I'm going to start with Peter over here, and we'll work our way around that way.
Peter May, Councillor Uplands Ward.
Good afternoon, Bridge Madhull from Council Scrutiny Team.
Peter Black, Chair.
Good afternoon, I'm Adrian Jeremiah from the Authority's Legal Department.
Good afternoon, Samantha Jenkins, Democratic Services Officer.
Councillor Wendy Lewis, Wenaloedd Ward.
Councillor Andrew Lewis, Deputy Leader, Swansea Council, Cabinet Member for Service Transformation.
Paula O'Connor, I'm the Chair of the Governance and Audit Committee for the Council.
Lovely, thank you. And Councillor Robert Smith has joined us for the item on the Welsh language as well, so he's in the room too when we get to that item. Excellent. Apologies for absence. I don't think we have any at all. No? In that case, any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest at all? No? Okay. Prohibition of whip votes in declaration of party whips? No. In that case, we move on to the minutes of the last meeting of the 8th of April. I'll just go through them for accuracy, starting with page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. Are we happy with their correct record? Excellent. Thank you very much. In that case, public question time is item 5. We haven't had any public questions, so we will swiftly move on to item 6, which is the scrutiny of the Swansea Public Services Board. I think we have a cast of thousands. Welcome, Councillor Andrea Lewis, the Leaders Representative and the Chair of PSB. I think we've got Roger Thomas online as well, the Chief Fire Officer. I've lost track. Have we got Hugh Manley, the Head of Operations, South West Wales Natural Resources Wales, Abigail Harris, Chief Executive Officer, Swansea Bay University Health Board, Karen Stapleton, Deputy Director of Planning and Partnerships at Swansea Bay University Health Board, and I believe we also have Chief Superintendent Steve Jones. And is Ness Young? Ness is here as well, Director of Corporate Services, and we have Richard Rowlands, the Corporate Performance Manager. So that's great. I also welcome the scrutiny co-optees, Sherry Bija from SCVS and Councillor Gwyn Wigley Evans, the Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Service, who have joined us and are welcome to participate as well as we go through. So, having gone through all that, I'm going to ask Andrew if you want to introduce the item, Andrew. Anything you want to say?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And may I say, I recently attended a scrutiny meeting where there were no officers with me and I was by myself. And now we do have the full support and might of the Public Services Board, which I'm delighted to say we've got all the representatives from all the step leads online with us today. So it's great to have that support. I don't intend to say too much. I'm going to ask Richard Rowlands to take us through the report. Okay. But just to say that we've had many positive meetings with scrutiny in the recent past, and I hope today is no exception because we are making really good progress, I feel, as a Public Services Board, and I'm really proud of the developments and progress to date. So I'll hand over to Richard to take us through the report. Thank you, Chair.
Richard.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the report starts on page 13 and it provides an update on the progress that the PSB has made during 2024-2025. And it also looks ahead as well to this year. So it includes the response from the PSB to the committee's questions following the November 2024 meeting, the achievements of the PSB described in the draft PSB annual report, and also the PSB's plans for this year, which are set out in the PSB action plan for 2025-2026. So looking at paragraphs 5 to 12, here we have an outline of the main points from the committee's letter following the November meeting and the PSB's response. And you can see the full details of that at Appendix A, which is on page 20, and Appendix B, which is on page 25. Paragraphs 13 to 16, they cover the PSB annual report, and you can see a draft of that at Appendix C, which is on page 29. Just to say as well, that will be an explanatory video which will accompany the report upon publication. But overall, the report details and the progress that the PSB has made towards its objectives last year. These are summarised in paragraphs 17 to 24. If we then turn to paragraphs 25 to 33, they describe the PSB's plans for this year, and that builds on the work that was done in 2024-2025, and you can see that in more detail at Appendix D on page 48. Paragraphs 34 and 35 provide a high-level view of the engagement with partners and stakeholders over the past year in the course of the work of the PSB. And then finally, in paragraphs 36 to 42, here we outline the main risks and issues related to the delivery of the PSB's priorities and the approaches that are in place to deal with them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. I'm going to first question then, which is allocated to me. So just reference the action plan. Is the PSB satisfied that the actions within the plan for 25-26 are clear and specific enough to be able to be measured? Andrea?
Yes, indeed, we are very satisfied. We totally took on board previous scrutiny meetings comments around how we measure what the impact of the PSB. And so I'm fair to say that we have a very concise plan which sets out exactly what needs to be done, who's leading on it and when it should be finished. Every step has clear actions, for example, expanding Flying Start or launching community safety events. There's no vagary at all. There are targets, there are deadlines and KPIs to track how well we're doing. So yes, I feel the actions are very specific, practical and deliverable, and we'll be able to measure progress as we go.
Okay, there's one section on step 3 where all the actions have a target date to be confirmed. What's happening with that? I think that's to do with climate change and net zero, isn't it?
Yeah, so with the climate change, there are some things which are a work in progress at the moment. So, for example, our mitigation and adaptation plan. And so, you know, these are very big pieces of work. So as soon as we have clarity on completion dates, we add them into the plan as we go.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'll move on to ask a question. So yeah,
He will.
yeah. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, sorry, just to add what Andrea said there as the chair of step 3. What I would say is some of the work is ongoing development following the public engagement events that have been held. So therefore, we're still going through the findings of that work. In fairness, Jane Richmond, the authorities worked hard on that, as Helen Gray. We've had great engagement. So of course, it's about ensuring those actions are what the community wants. And of course, anyone who's done public consultation will know it takes time to formulate the findings from that. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Roger Thomas, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just an observation more than anything, and I appreciate that. You know, we some years ago we were challenged in terms of some of the metrics and the measurements, and that's absolutely right and proper. We should be able to plot, chart, and report on progress against these, and there should be sort of quantitative measures that we can actually show that we've delivered on, and that's right and proper. And as a scrutiny group, clearly that's your role as well. But I think it was Einstein who said not all that matters can be measured, and I think there is some danger in terms sometimes of just focusing on quantitative metrics at the expense sometimes of qualitative things. And just to furnish an example, I think we're in the middle of working within the Fire and Rescue Service on culture, improvement on culture. Very, very difficult thing. We can do a lot of things. We can put a lot of things in place, but quite challenging in terms of actually quantifying and measuring improvements on culture. Just an example of that, But I think we shouldn't steer away, or we shouldn't be steered wholly towards things that are quantitatively measured, and we shouldn't shy away equally from things that are difficult sometimes to measure. It's just an observation. That's all. Yeah. Thanks, Chair.
I think I take your point, Roger. I think the issue here is whether the actions you take add value. And that's what we're trying to measure, I think. So it may well be that whether it's added value is a quantity, can be measured quantitatively, or it may well be that it can be measured in a different way. So I think that's what we're concerned, is that whatever you do is adding value to the agenda which you're pursuing, and that's what I think what we're looking for in this action plan here. And to be fair, I think by and large you've met that criteria. Just that when we come to in the 2026, just make sure you've done it all. That's all.
No pressure.
No pressure, no. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. This is something I picked up actually because I've just come from a planning committee as well. So step 4, strong communities. One of the third planned action is talking about embedding crime prevention measures into urban planning by aligning local development with public safety objectives. Now, of course, we're currently putting together the new version of the LDP. So I'm just interested how that works in terms of making sure that what input, the input which the PSB is putting into crime prevention is fed through into the LDP and vice versa, so that you're working together. Because this is actually something which you can actually measure to make sure that whatever comes in the LDP has been properly vetted in terms of crime prevention. I know Steve Jones is here if he wants to.
Yes, Chair, I was going to invite Steve to comment on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Steve Jones, BCU Commander Swansea Neath Patrol. But so now got an important question which we are actively working through as we speak. So I'll just bring us back sort of slightly, what we've done through the Public Service Board over the last few years before I touch on the actual question. So the Safer Streets initiative was a key initiative that we really touched into, secured a significant amount of funding to tackle neighbourhood crime, ASB, and importantly, violence against women and girls within the community. So we secured quite a significant funding stream, which helped us with our CCTV, our lighting infrastructure to improve certain areas and try and prevent and deter crime and disorder. So really important initiative we touched on. So for the particular question here, so lots have been taken on board by the Public Service Board, and within South Wales Police, we have designing our crime officers that work very, very closely with the local authority planning departments. And part of their sort of role is to absolutely engage and be part of that local delivery development plan, the LDP. What we managed to do is put designing out crime and secure by design sort of footprint within the LDP. So every new development that comes in, particularly within urban areas, must have what we call our DOCOs, design out crime overview in terms of crime and disorder, what they need to put in place to design it clearly out. Lots of other initiatives that we touch on. So we bring our sort of crime disorder, our intelligence product, our information product. So when that's design our crime officer doing their assessment, they are fully sighted on the information intelligence that we have on current crime patterns and trends to make sure with new developments, new structures, particularly the residential footprint, the commercial footprint, is that we are securing a real safe and secure area. Also, work is ongoing with our Welsh counter-terrorism security advisors. We're all aware that Martin's Law is due to descend on us, which puts a lot of ownership back on premises that accommodate certain numbers. So built into any infrastructure new design, we do use our security advisors from the Welsh counter-terrorism team to advise and guide design planners. So we make sure that we are not a target for CT activity as best we can. So vehicle sort of mitigation measures, for example, crowded places, to make sure all those areas are safe by nature. So foreign Welsh Government guidance as well, we're fully aligned to it. We're fully aligned to the planning infrastructure and the supplementary guidance, the community safety guidance by the local authority, the safer places sort of residential guide that the local authority has in place. And then from a Welsh Government perspective, the Welsh development quality requirements and the housing quality standards as well. So the design of crime officers are real experts, and we do link in with them real closely to make sure that crime prevention footprint is at the forefront of planning guidelines.
Thank you, Steve. That's very helpful. So effectively, when the LDP comes before council, there's going to be specific policies in there which says that when applications come in, there has to be that particular outlook in terms of designing out crime amongst those particular applications.
Absolutely, and it's built into, so just coming off the call with our design and crime officers, so we built it into, the local development plans as well. So it's part of the documentation, or it will certainly be added into it with the new sort of plan that's been devised as we speak.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. Anybody else wants to come? No, Peter May, on this issue.
Yes, it is. On the planned actions, one of them is another one for Chief Superintendent again. Enhance youth engagement initiatives to prevent crime, antisocial behaviour, and integrating safeguarding messages into local programmes. We had antisocial behaviour issues during lockdown in Cumdonkin Park, and there was a good youth engagement sort of education, almost like a restorative justice type thing. What sort of youth engagement initiatives have you actually got in place at the moment, and what ones are you hoping to develop?
Oh, I think it's probably, just coming back on that one. So through our community safety sort of structures, both police, local authority, numerous sort of various mechanisms. We use the Evolve sort of programme as well that bring together some of the outreach workers. We take ourselves into where youths are gathering. So in terms of engagement, we've recently redesigned how we engage with young people in schools. So it used to be, whilst government funding was provided to policing, where we had to follow a designated all Wales school programme. That funding has been taken away from policing, but we've kept the officers in post, so they class themselves youth engagement officers. So in essence, they're engaging with young people in the schools on a programme that is really designed by local CSP. So we do what's right for the city and county of Swansea. So we engage with young people in schools, but we also follow them out into the community. So whatever happens in the playground, if that then manifests itself in the community, we continue that engagement footprint. So numerous engagement initiatives, and I think for this meeting, I can certainly send them through to you, what we do sort of each day, but it's at the forefront. And we do have that child-centred approach in terms of our strategic sort of delivery with community safety as well. So putting the child first to try and get engagement, to deter, prevent, ASB, etc. So all those are built into our current infrastructures.
Yeah. Susan Jones, are you on this particular issue, Sue?
Yes, it's again a question for the inspector. There's a number of cycle paths that are being installed within the city and county, with quite a little bit of antisocial behaviour associated with it. Do the crime prevention officers have an input into the design of the areas that cyclists go on within the communities?
Yeah, that is slightly different in terms of the infrastructure. So I think if that's an issue, that'll be flagged up through the neighbourhood policing infrastructure. So if we do have sort of hotspot issues, we will use a different type of individuals. So it's they're locally based, which are crime reduction tactical advisors. So basically, the design now crime officers are headcourt based that we call on for the real high level planning developments, and then for localised issues, as you mentioned, their council, we will call on the CRTAs, crime reduction tactical advisors, to provide that suitable advice as and when. And very much they sit on our localised problem solving group. So if a community identifies an issue on a particular cycle track, we're not probably in being for the design and development of it. But if we do then get reports of antisocial behaviour, we will certainly put our sort of plans around it and tactical advice and resources to support. And I am aware of some issues around certain cycle tracks. And in fact, we've trained our officers up to ride bikes as well, so we can get around a lot quicker and to be really at the forefront as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have training to ride bikes now, is it?
Cycle proficiency back to the school days, yes.
Oh, I did that a long time ago. Okay, thanks for that. Next question is Councillor Mary Jones, but she's given her apology. She's going to be late, so I'm going to ask the question on her behalf. She says that you report the stakeholder participation has been integral to the development of the PSB annual report 24-25 and the PSB action plan for 25-26. Extensive consultations and engagement activities were undertaken with various stakeholder groups, including amongst others the public, communities, businesses, councillors and employees. Can you give examples of how, when and where these activities took place? Andrea.
Yes, I can indeed. I'm very happy to give an update on that. I think it's probably fair to say that I think we've had the most engagement sessions this past year than we've ever seen as a PSB. So we've had several engagements this year. Last September, we held the Swansea PSB Partnership Forum with over 50 people from councils, health, emergency services and community groups all coming together, sharing ideas to shape what we do next. And as another example for Flying Start, in early years, we've carried out surveys and assessments involving families and service providers. Our human rights work included several public events, plus we set up a new stakeholder panel to act as a critical friend. And on climate action, we ran 12 community workshops and also linked in with schools. So lots of real engagement and not just ticking a box.
Can I just ask about the stakeholder panel? What's the composition and size of that panel? Yeah, Ness, yeah.
Sorry, if I could go to Ness for that.
Ness Young, is she there?
Yes, yeah, I am here. I don't know the exact numbers, but I can certainly provide that afterwards. But we are going through a process where we're actually advertising for more panel members at the moment. I might be able to, before the end of the meeting, come back to you with an answer on exactly how many people are involved at the moment, if you can leave that with me, Chair.
If we don't get that, we must probably put it in the letter anyway, so we can get the answer in the letter if need be, Ness. That's okay.
I think it's between 15 and 20 people
Okay.
at the moment, but as I say, I can get the exact number for you probably before the end of this meeting.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for that, Ness. Okay, Chris Holly, the next question.
There's no need. It's already been talked out and I've had the answers as well.
Okay, in that case, we should move on to Mike White on wellbeing step 1 early years. Mike.
Yes, yeah. My question is about obviously the step 1 wellbeing early years. Your report states, this is on page 36. Your report states that the expansion of Flying Start services has been one of the key achievements. Targeting resources effectively support more children and families in areas of greatest need. Can you tell the committee more about how the expansion has been determined and funding utilised? There are families in particular areas of Swansea who ought to be benefiting from Flying Start but unable to access the support. What can PSP do to increase the coverage of Flying Start to other areas? And I can just give you an example if you want me to.
Yeah, give an example then, Mike.
Yeah, for instance, in my ward, Brynabrid Primary, we've got quite a lot of properties which are obviously privately rented, and a lot of families that obviously we've got in deprivation and that, and got young children, and because a section of the ward is in where they got more sort of better sort of style properties fall into a higher council tax band, and that's where the issue seems to be, where the school is unable then to actually qualify for Flying Start.
Okay, Andrea?
Yeah, I'm pleased to say that we've got Karen Stapleton with us from the Swansea Bay University Health Board, and Karen and the Health Board are leading on this step, so I'll concede to Karen to advise on this step.
Karen?
This one.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks so much for the question. Well, hi, everyone. So just in terms of your question, so the expansion of Flying Start, and in particular the sort of the childcare element, has been absolutely guided by like hard data. So the team there have been looking at the population numbers and the deprivation levels to sort of pinpoint the areas where we need to expand most. So based on that, they've already expanded into places like Penderry, Bonamine and Castle. And the workforce capacity is key here. So it's been done on a phased basis, and they're planning to deliver that service more and more to families as staffing increases. And so for the future, we're also looking for that particular element to look at how we can use schools and libraries and communities to reach even more families. So it's very targeted at the moment. It's based on evidence. That's one of the things we've been doing as partners over the last year is having a sort of collaborative agreement about how we share and use data, because it's absolutely key that we plan the extension on data, because obviously, resources are finite. So we're trying to do that. I think there's also a Flying Start childcare outreach offer that's in place. So children living outside the original postcode areas are now starting to receive that by that outreach model. And then just finally, I suppose, just sort of on that question, there's also the Flying Start original offer that went to the LSOA areas, and we're now delivering that service to 2,646 children. So that's an increase of about 180 on what the original programme was. So in this last year, we've expanded it. 200 extra families are part of that. So that's been part of working with the health visiting teams, bringing our data together to look at the deprivation and the families in need. So, and that's different for childcare. This is the Flying Start health visitor element. So our plan for this year is to do even more on that, and hoping to bring another 200 families into the offer in our region. But that is utilising existing budget. So that's obviously the bottom line, really. So I hope that helps answer some of that. So it's based on hard data and that close collaboration using the intelligence of our corresponding childcare, family support and health visiting teams. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, you've got a follow-up, or you?
Yeah, just sort of to say, I'm sure if they did go to the school could provide you with the evidence. But as I say, the issue has been around just 90% of the catchment area where there's the sort of rented property element in the area, and a lot of deprivation there but it's been sort of penalised by a sort of 10% of a part of the road where they obviously people are owner occupiers and got a higher sort of council band. That seems to be the sticking point, I gather.
Okay. Before I bring Lyndon in, just Karen, in terms of the outreach programme you referred to, would the pupils that Mike is referring to be able to benefit from that if you have a number of pupils in an area which would not normally qualify?
I'm sure I'm able to comment on that specific area, but that's absolutely something, Chair, that we could come back to you on and clarify that, if that's okay.
Yeah. So are all the schools aware about this outreach programme whereby they could nominate pupils for it, or is it limited in what the number of it can actually manage?
I'm not sure I can answer that, sorry. I'll have to come back to you on that as well.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for that. Lyndon Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Could I say for Bridge, I should have mentioned the declaration of interest. I'm a member of the Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Authority. My question really is to Andrea and Roger. I'll be meeting residents in my ward later on tonight. And if I were to say to them, I've been to a meeting that discussed the Swansea Public Service Board, and they'd say, what on earth does it do? In a few words, what do you think it's done to make a difference?
Yeah, perhaps in order to try and be helpful, I think it might be good, Lyndon, if you directed them first of all to our website, because that states everything that we do as a public service board, if people are interested in that. We do still struggle, I'll admit, with lack of public engagement in terms of public questions at our Swansea Public Services Board. We try to engage and we try to reach out, but for some it might be quite a dry subject. In fairness, but I know that the fire service, and I'm sure Roger will come in and comment on the community engagement events that the fire service lead on. We've got human rights events, newsletters, surveys, workshops. We're trying to be more visible in communities and not just being online. So we can't expect the public to come to us. We've got to go to the public. And finally, Richard referenced earlier about the Public Services Board video that's being published at the moment, and we're just waiting on Welsh translation, and then that will go out with basically a visual summary of what we're doing as a Public Services Board. So I'm happy, for Lyndon to come back after his community event with any questions that might arise from that. But we are trying to take it on the road, as it were, and get out into our communities.
I think I'd suggest that the Public Service Board is not the only body that doesn't have great many public questions. I think most of the public sector bodies don't either. No. Okay, I think Roger wants to come in on this as well. Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Jones. And yeah, good to see you with another hat on today. Yeah, I think it's perhaps less important that people would be able to connect what they see and what they get out in communities to the Public Services Board. I think that's probably a secondary concern. It's great if they do make that linkage, but a lot of this hopefully will be more seamless. I think what has happened over the last few years, first of all, collaboration and co-working within public services didn't start with Public Services Board, so a lot was in train already. And we had really fostered and developed really positive working relationships with other agencies, not just blue light colleagues, but wider partners and into the third sector, and in some cases with private industry as well. More challenging perhaps in that space, but in terms of what people could see, and again, some will be intangible. I talked about the difficulty of measuring some of this stuff as well, but within our two worlds, really, I mean, in response, clearly we work with blue light partners. That's been well established over many years and is is well accepted and recognised by the public, and when we come together in multi agency events. But in terms of the prevention world, so the community safety world, we work with partners not only to conduct home fire safety checks on our behalf. We have a number of partners who work in that space to assist us in our work. We work with a number of agencies to identify the vulnerable within our community. So a lot of our work is going on. So because eyes and ears and partner agencies that perhaps do enter people's homes and refer individuals for home fire safety checks and for some prevention work as well. Every child within Swansea at 2 points of their schooling lives will have engagement through community safety experts coming into schools, promoting, knowing, and as we do, that the more we can do with the younger generation, the more this gets embedded at a key point in their lives, so they take these messages through their lives in terms of a whole range of things as well. And more on the protection side of things then. So I'm talking about now our statutory duty in and around commercial buildings. Again, this will be seamless for most individuals, but just going into hotels and commercial retail units, nighttime economy as well. The work that we do in terms of ensuring those premises are safe and do what they need to do in terms of if we do have an emergency, we are able to evacuate and the building behaves in a way, should we say, that we would expect. And on top of that, we have a couple of really important events. I know you've attended our Community Safety Village last year on the Marina, this year again on the Marina at the start of June as well, on the 7th of June. If the Scrutiny Committee would like to join us, we're there all day, please pop down. A really positive event in terms of bringing partners together. We also held last year a seminar on safeguarding in the Liberty, I call it the Liberty Stadium, the Swansea.com Stadium, I should say. Again, really well attended by partner agencies, and a lot of the work that goes on is the networking, bringing partner agencies together to see how we can work more effectively in that field as well. And thirdly and finally, we held a walking in your shoes event a couple of years ago, which brought, for instance, building control and planning officers in to meet with our building safety officers to understand their sort of where on a sort of Venn diagram where they came together and that sort of area of mutual interest and support that could go on as well. We also did that with community safety practitioners across a whole range of areas as well. So we do an awful lot behind the scenes, which would hopefully manifest itself in a better and more coordinated public services, particularly within those two fields of prevention and protection. But yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Roger. If you remember all that, Lyndon, you'd be better person than I am. But I think the best answer is most probably that the PSB brings together all the public sector bodies in Swansea and help so they can work together and talk to each other. I think that's what it boils down to, doesn't it? Do you want to come back? Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks to Andrea and Roger. And I would say that the work that you've been doing has, has made a difference, and the Public Service Board is better than it certainly appeared to be before. And I will be going to the community safety event in June. It was excellent last year, so thank you both.
Right. Don't think there's any more questions. I want to come back to flying because I actually thought Linda was going to come in with his education hat and ask a flying start question then. just a quick one on Flying Start. There's an extra £30 million in the Welsh Government budget for Flying Start. I'm just wondering how that has filtered through to Swansea and what difference that has made to the Flying Start programme. And if you can't answer, we can get that in writing afterwards. I don't know if Karen has an answer to that at all.
Thanks, Chair. No, I don't have an answer to that because I don't know where that money's gone, because Flying Start covers a number of elements. Yeah, childcare, health visiting, etc. So yeah, Ness has put her hands up.
Okay. Maybe that's best to go to who's that? Oh, Ness. Yes, Ness might have an answer.
Hopefully it's a little bit helpful. We are currently working through the detail and working out how to use that funding, so we can provide a more detailed answer outside a committee. But at the moment, I haven't got anything specific to update you on, Chair, but I know that we're looking at it at the moment.
Okay, thanks. I knew it was early days. Just wondered if you had that. That's great. Thank you. Andrea.
Yeah, perhaps if I can add to Roger's response and Lyndon's response, if you're meeting young people as ward members in your communities, it might be really helpful for you to signpost them to the Fire Services Community Safety event, because that is where we can directly engage with young people. So if ward members or scrutiny committee members can help us promote the message far and wide, we'd really appreciate that.
Okay, that's great. Any more questions for the Public Service Board at all? No? Okay, thank you everyone for attending. It's been very helpful, and we'll see you again in 6 months whenever we come back to this particular subject. Thanks, everybody. Oh, hang on. Who's coming? Roger, you want to come?
Yeah, so not a question, Chair, just a point for accuracy. On page 7, it makes reference to the 4 statutory members of the PSB, and one of them, it says the Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Service. The statutory part is actually Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Authority, and the work within the PSB is then delegated to myself, but it is the Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Authority is the actual statutory partner, just for accuracy there. What is point 1.3?
Wouldn't want to cut out the elected members, would we?
Certainly not.
Okay, thank you for that. Great. Okay, I'm going to move on to item 7. On the Welsh Language Standards Annual Report. I see Councillor Robert Smith there. I think Councillor Elliot King has sent his apologies on this. And who else we got? Is that Rhian as well? Yeah, Rhian Miller as well. Access, and Ness is, I think, staying with us on this particular as well. Okay. Would you like to introduce the report, Robert?
Robert.
I said Robert.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, thank you, Chair. And if I can formally introduce the report, what I suggest is that Ness will take us through the report, and then if we can have any questions at the end, and I'll happily address any policy questions, if there's any technical questions, can be directed either to Ness or to Rhian, if that's okay.
Okay. Ness, would you like to introduce the report? We have all read it, of course, but that'd be great.
Okay, just edited highlights then. So it's a statutory report which provides an overview of how we're complying with Welsh language standards and how we're promoting the use of Welsh and what progress we've made during 2024-25. So in terms of highlights, we adopted our new Welsh language promotion strategy for 24-2029 in November 2024, and that followed public and stakeholder engagement. So that strategy sets out 9 key commitments to promoting Welsh across Swansea, including support for education, social use, workforce and digital access. And the next thing to mention is the mystery shopper exercise that was undertaken by the Welsh Language Commissioner in January this year, which found no issues with our levels of compliance across service delivery, correspondence, phone, website and jobs. Which was good news. We've strengthened the Welsh offer in terms of recruitment. All new and vacant posts this year were advertised, or last year, sorry, 2024-5, were advertised in with Welsh language skills as desirable or essential. 97% of new posts required Welsh skills as desirable, 3% as essential. and we've seen a small but positive increase in staff Welsh language skills over the period. At this point, at the end of 24-25, 17.6% of council staff reported some level of Welsh ability, which was up from 15.8% the year before. But the number of staff undertaking formal Welsh language training has dropped slightly to 37 participants. Our translation unit has increased its capacity. It's translated 2.5 million words in 2024-25 compared to 2.3 million in 23-24. 23-24. Bear with me, sorry, just lost my place there. And we've reduced our reliance on our external provider. So again, that's positive. In social services, we've strengthened our focus on Welsh language champions, aligning with the More Than Words framework and embedding Welsh into training and daily practice. And there are still, despite those sort of good news headlines, there are still some challenges and areas for improvement. So recruiting Welsh language speaking staff continues to be a challenge for us, especially in frontline and telephone services. We've seen a decline in the number of Welsh calls linked to the shift to voicemail and callback systems, but we are still maintaining service standards. Participation, as I said, in formal Welsh language learning has dipped slightly, which we are going to seek to address in this year through more targeted promotion and flexible learning options. And we are continuing to focus on embedding the Welsh language into occupational practices across the council. So looking ahead to 25-26, our priorities include in enhancing our internal translation capacity further and reviewing external spend, increasing our staff awareness and compliance with the standards, especially our new starters, continuing to create community and social opportunities to use Welsh, particularly through cultural services in schools, and strengthening the Welsh language element of our IIAs, our integrated impact assessments, to ensure consistent consideration. So just in summary, I think 24-25 has been a year of consolidation for us. We've strengthened our foundations in policy, recruitment and digital, but we are realistic about our challenges, particularly around workforce capacity and early years engagement, and we continue to be committed to delivering on our promotion strategy and ensuring that Swansea plays its part in achieving the 2050 national Cymraeg goals. So hopefully that was a quick whiz through the highlights. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got some questions. This actually is a question I have asked in council before as well. So I'm just looking on page 99 of the agenda, which is the appendix, one of the appendices, the strategy. It's not the strategy, is it? The Welsh language promotion strategy for 24-29. So looking at the tables in there, in terms of the changing Welsh speakers in Swansea wards and also the changing Welsh speakers by age group. Clearly, the North County wards and Morriston, the north part of Swansea, which is traditionally the strongest area in terms of Welsh speakers, as I think Robert knows, there's been quite a big decline there. And similarly, in terms of the age groups, I would expect between 5 and 44 to go up because we've had nearly 2 decades of emphasis on Welsh medium education. But of course, 3 to 4, there's been a significant decline, which indicates I think we need to do a bit more in terms of Welsh-speaking nursery to try to get that. So I'm just wondering if you have any views on the particularly in terms of the decline in the north of Swansea of Welsh speakers and how we can maybe address those.
Yes, and I think we've discussed this before, and I think the north of Swansea, and I'd include then areas like where I represent in Llwch, Golgysainan and Pontarddulais, you've seen a decline in those wards, and if you look at the decline in percentage of Welsh speakers in the last 20 years, was even more stark if you go back to the 1971 census and look at the pattern over the last 50 years, and that has been a staggering decline. Not only in those wards, but in similar communities in neighbouring authorities. If you look at the Amman Valley, if you look at parts of Llanelli, parts of Neath Talbot, this is seems to be a an issue that's prevalent in industrial Southwest Wales, or what was industrial Southwest Wales. And I think, Welsh Government in 2020 recently came out with a pilot strategy to look at, because they've identified this region as somewhere where there is clearly an issue here. I think we need to learn from the way those pilot projects operated and look at if there is evidence of good practice. It's not something that can be taken in isolation. I think that there's issues around how we address education policy. There's issues around economic development, making sure that we've got job opportunities locally, making sure that we've got the cultural opportunities locally. And I think that there's no single bullet, because we've got to realise that decline has taken place in a period where you've seen a growth in Welsh medium education, you've seen a growth in the status of the Welsh language, the legal status of the Welsh language, and I think awareness of the Welsh language has increased as well. And yet we are still seeing this decline. I don't think there's a silver bullet, as I said, but I think looking forward, the strategy we have is one of consolidation. But we need to be looking in the next 25 years, then consolidate the position we're at, and then look towards measures to increase and have a significant increase in percentage of speaking Welsh moving forward over the next 25 years, if that target of 1 million speakers is to be hit by 2050.
I mean, we've got the decrease in the number of Welsh speakers from 45 upwards. I'm just wondering, is it that in those particular areas that decline is mostly focused on that particular areas, or is it just a general across the board in there? Are people moving out to get jobs, or?
I think it's a combination of different factors, and I would say because you had the numbers there in those communities before that you didn't have in other communities in Swansea, and as I said, it's the same pattern that's being seen in other similar communities in neighbouring authorities.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest concentration of Welsh speakers, if I remember correctly, is actually Cardiff. And certainly the biggest concentration of jobs where you can work with the medium of Welsh is in Cardiff.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know S4C have now moved to Carmarthen, which helps, but I'm wondering where people are moving to those jobs because they are Welsh speakers, and that's where the jobs are.
That could well be the case, and of course it's a phenomenal growth in the number of Welsh speakers in the Cardiff area. As is the converse of what we're seeing, and I think yes, we need to look at that and see are there issues around Welsh speaking job opportunities that need to be addressed.
So in terms of this, when this looks at the next 5 years, we're actually 4 years now.
Yeah.
Are there any specific measures in there apart from say trying to consolidate in terms of those particular communities?
Yes, and I think that the strategy, obviously, we're looking at how we as a council operate. There's the Welsh in education plans, and they will be important. But I think, as I said in proposing the report in council, it needs to be part of a wider picture. We need to look at how we use what is still a significant critical mass of Welsh speakers in the western part of South Wales and within the Swansea travel to work area, and how we use that to create a vibrant Welsh language culture where Welsh is used. It's not confined to either the workplace or the classroom, but it is a community language, that there are activities within our communities, and I think that's going to be key moving forward.
Okay, just moving on to the age issues. I mean, the 3 to 4 group has had a 31% drop in Welsh speakers in that 10-year period. Now, I know a lot of this is below school age, of course, but there are a number of Welsh TFE nursery places there. Is it an issue that we should be trying to promote that more for that particular age group? Are we doing that?
Yes, and we're implementing plans to do that, promote awareness of things like Cyrch TRV and the early years opportunities in Welsh medium schools. I think it's all going to be incremental in pushing up those numbers.
Yeah, but we don't have a role in terms of providing those nursery places, do we?
No, well, depends on the age group, but
well, below 4.
Below 4, no.
No.
So, our role will be in promoting awareness of what's there.
I mean, would we have a role, for example? I mean, money is tight, but maybe providing subsidies for these places in these nursery groups. That's one way to try to help them grow, or just providing help in terms of publicising their existence.
I think it's the latter, certainly. We need to publicise awareness and make sure that parents are aware of what the provision is out there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions on this? It's just me, is it? Peter?
Appendix A, internal and external communications examples. So we've got a plethora, I don't know if they're Facebook posts or whatever. They're all in English. Now, isn't that defeating the object of the exercise, or is there a bilingual translation to these? Just an observation. I hope I'm corrected on it.
I'll come back on that one. Yeah, in terms of the internal communications, obviously most of them internally will be in English because that's for our staff. And we do the odd one in Welsh for staff, but mostly in English. In terms of the public side facing, we have a Welsh only specific Facebook also. So all the posts go on our Welsh Facebook, but also on our main Facebook, we do try and do a mix of both English and in Welsh just to encourage that kind of conversation. So yeah, they'll both will appear. But for the examples I've given you, I've just given them in Welsh for ease of, so you know kind of the breadth of work that we're trying to do in terms of promoting the work.
Thanks.
I think the standards say that anything public facing has to be bilingual, doesn't it? So, yeah, but internally they don't necessarily have to be, unless you find an advantage to them. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? No? Okay, well, thank you for that. I think we've scrutinised the Welsh language quite a bit in the last year. And that's quite a fair question. So it's been quite well. Thank you for coming along.
And I think it has to be borne in mind as well. I think it was in last November that this strategy went to council.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we need to, it's important that we do have this scrutiny, but we don't realise it's only about 6 months since that strategy was approved.
That's right, yeah. So obviously we'll probably come back to this in a year's time or so to look at how you're progressing and how you're actually delivering on this and whether we can actually make any changes. But I think it's a long-term strategy, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
So what I'm going to say, you know, if the committee has feedback,
yeah,
I think, you know, we need, the more we can look into this, the more we reflect on the strategy moving forward, so that it does become a kind of a reflective process, the better.
Yeah, before we finish, Francesca O'Brien has just come in for the question.
Okay.
Francesca.
Thank you, Chair. So I was debating whether to come in with a question, but I've actually got my 3-year-old next to me, and that's the exact point he'll start chatting. So the only thing I've noticed, I've got a lot of friends who do teach in primary schools, and of course we've got a lot of children, you know, whose first language is a different language, is not Welsh or English. Do we think that perhaps has an impact on them? I know that's the sort of the ripe age to sort of get another language under their belt, but do we think that might have an impact on the data if they're learning English as a second language, meaning that their third language is Welsh? Do we think that could be perhaps why the data is not as good as what we would hope?
Yeah, I'll come back on that. I don't think it would have any impact really in terms of that. I mean, I think the data is there. It shows, you know, the information by ward, and I'm not sure. Obviously, there are some areas of Swansea where there are other languages spoken other than English and Welsh, but I don't think that would have an impact on in terms of the Welsh language being spoken in those schools.
I think there are some studies that show if you are multilingual, if you can speak more than one language, it makes it easier to learn other languages.
That's the point I was going to bring up. I mean, I've seen evidence to suggest that that's the case, that if you acquire a second language, and it becomes easier to acquire a third. So I think, or a fourth. So I think that's the evidence that I've seen anyway.
Yeah, the evidence I've seen as well. Okay, Francesca. Yeah.
Yeah. No, lovely. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Right. Now I'll close this item. Thank you very much indeed, Robert, and thank you. Yeah. Okay. Next item is the membership. Oh, and what's the next item? This Scrutiny Performance Panel Progress Report, which is climate change and nature, and I think Councillor Mary Jones is with us now. Mary, do you want to introduce
Thank
us?
you. I was here for most of the meeting. I have to say,
I saw you arrive, yes.
Singleton were very efficient. I have to give it to them. So I was in and out. Yes, you've all seen the report and hopefully read it. We've had a very busy year. As you can see, we only meet bi-monthly. And I have to pay tribute to Councillor Andrea Lewis. She couldn't come today for whatever reason, but she's there for nearly every meeting because everything we seem to look at is in her portfolio. So it is quite tough because it's a very large area. And obviously, we're always fighting, looking for funding. That's the main thing. You know, that the panel understand that the officers are looking for grants all the time to try and do the work that they're required to do, or other public bodies, by 2030, let alone going on to 2050. So we've had some good suggestions, actually, from the panel. You could see the one about the Clyne River, that we were looking to have a mini hydro, but sadly it can't be taken up again for funding. I've just done exactly what Ness did and lost my place, so this is really good. We've actually looked at the electric charging points, and well, we want to know their efficiency in as much as how many times are they being used. There is quite a lot of controversy on where some of them are cited. In my own ward in particular, they went live yesterday and Facebook is full of it because we wanted them in a different location. But because of the grant from Welsh Government, it had to go on council land. So it is something that we're looking at for the future to encourage private areas like church car parks. I mean, supermarkets are trying to do it now. There's suggestions about the fuel stations. I know for a fact, I think the one in Blackpill is looking to do it or has done it. And yet the one in Sketty, they wouldn't do it because they said there wouldn't be enough demand. So it's a work in progress. So if anybody wants to ask me any questions, but I'd be happy to answer them. But I said it's a very, very large area to cover and we only meet bi-monthly. Thank you.
Okay, anybody got any questions on the panel report at all? No? Okay, thank you, Mary. Thank you for the work you're doing, because I think it's important. This is a really important agenda, and I think it's important that we do scrutinise that quite closely. And I think the panel's doing a really good job in doing that. So thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Item 9 is membership of scrutiny panels and working groups. There's no changes to report. And item 10 is scrutiny letters. There's a couple of letters there for information. So that brings us to item 11, which is the committee end of year review. And I think we're looking to see what we've done well, how have we focused on the right things, what if anything could be done better, what if needed, if anything, to improve and develop future scrutiny. And I'm very pleased to welcome the chair of the Governance and Audit Committee, Paula, who has come along especially to give her view on how we're working together with her committee and whether you think we can do anything better, Paula, as a means I think just ease us into this particular item, if that's possible. Thank you.
Yeah, as you know, since the terms of reference changed for the Governance and Audit Committee to include performance and complaints, etc., there was some sensitivities around the potential overlap between the Governance and Audit Committee and the work of the Scrutiny Committee. And both you and I, Peter, were keen to make sure there was absolutely crystal clear that we knew the roles of both of those committees to avoid any overlap, particularly, and also any gaps in what we were looking at. And I'm pleased, I've made reference to it in the annual report of how we're working cohesively together. And I do, welcome the working arrangement that we both have. And if I've got any queries around the work and the information coming through to the Governance and Audit Committee, I would certainly raise that with you, and I know you would do the same with me. So I think we both clearly understand in each committee's roles, and I still think it's an ever-going development and journey that we travel, because something new pops up, most quarters, that potentially challenge us. And I'm pleased for the help that Nes provides in looking at the agendas that we have of what reports are purely for information for the committee, where we can still ask questions, but we won't expect answers at the Governance and Audit Committee. They can come back at future times. So we've got clearly a part A and a part B to our agendas now. Part A is where the members are asking questions and making those challenges. But part B is a very different feel, in as much as it's been to a scrutiny committee, or it's been to cabinet, or it's been to the council, and that is purely for information to complete the circle in what the Governance and Audit Committee need to be aware of. So I'm very confident that we are working in harmony and quite cohesively together. So, and you know, I'm always very impressed with the amount of work that Scrutiny Committee cover and the challenges that that the committee members give to officers and the teams. So I wouldn't want to add any more than that.
Thank you, Paul. And I think I'm equally impressed by the amount of work which audit governance gets through, because some of it is very complex indeed and quite technical. So it's I don't envy you that at all. Has anybody got any views at all on anything we might want to do better, or which we could do differently at all? I mean, I know the authority's having a governance review, isn't it, shortly? And I know I'm going to be going as chair of the Scrutiny Programme Committee to talk to that review. So that they're looking at in detail at how the authority operates, and I think scrutiny is going to be an important part of that.
Yeah.
To make and of course audit and governance, to make sure that we're holding the executive to account properly in terms of doing that. So I think if you do have any thoughts, please let us know. But also, there is a questionnaire that has been circulated to all members asking you to give your views on scrutiny, and most of the members of this committee have not yet filled it in. So could you please complete that questionnaire at the very least and send it back to Bridge? Bridge will send it out again later on, just in case you've lost it in your inbox. But if you could please fill that question, it will help us tremendously in terms of planning the scrutiny programme for the future. Okay, thank you for that. Chris, yes. Chris Holly?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's important that we realise what the Scrutiny Programme Committee actually does, and it's a widespread, all-encompassing committee, because it actually draws together all the other scrutiny functions. I think one of the things that I would like is that the committee actually became the co-opted members that are on it from the various other committees become full-time members of it, because I think that it's an important issue that, you know, as we are non-voting members, the chairs of like Lyndon and myself, and our scrutiny boards cover virtually 90% of the function of the council. So I think that's one issue that I think we should be looking at. I think the other thing is that because of strategic nature of the Scrutiny Programme Committee, there is issues about how the major issues, the major policy decisions, or the major policy programmes are split up and how we look at them. And I think that when we come to the planning committee, which is planning conference, which I think is next month, that we look at how we
10th of June.
we look. Pardon?
10th of June.
June, yeah. I think we need to look at how we actually look at the major policies that were in the council, and how, as a programme committee, we can look at how they are sectioned up, if you like, to the various other scrutiny boards. And I think apart from that, I think everything else has been okay.
Okay, I think the one thing I'd say is that the Scrutiny Programme Committee is, of course, elected by council, and therefore it has to be proportional. And that, I think, is the issue in terms of co-opting panel chairs onto it. The panels themselves are appointed and don't have to be proportional, and they feed into this committee. So in a sense, it would be difficult to bring the panel chairs on board unless you actually maintain the proportionality. And I think that would be the major obstacle to doing that. And also it would also alter the size of this committee in terms of doing that as well. So I think it's an interesting suggestion, but I think it would need to be looked at in some detail. I think my attitude towards this committee, the way we've dealt with this committee, is rather than just have every cabinet member wheeled in on a rota basis and actually ask them a whole range of questions, I've tried to focus on particular subjects because I feel that way you can go into more depth on the subject and get a bit more detail and get below that. So that's the way I've tried to steer the committee. If you feel that isn't the right approach, then let me know. But I think that's the way I've tried to do it. Because I think the important thing, I think, from the programme committee is that when we deal with issues like as we've just dealt with today, that we try to get some scrutiny and depth into those issues. And the advantage of having the panels is that because they're subject based, is not only can the members build up an area of expertise in, say, climate change, education, or social services, but they can also look in quite some depth into those departments as well. So in a sense, we're trying to do a lot of things at the same time, but the important thing is that we try to get underneath the skin of these policies and how they're being delivered, and that I think is the main role of scrutiny as I view it as well. Yeah. Anybody else got anything want to add to this? No? Okay, then can I just again urge you to fill in the questionnaires and send them back to Bridge so that we can get a good cross-section of responses. Thank you. It might be worth also, I think, Bridge sending them to the co-opted members on the co-opted members as well. Not just the co-opted members of the education, but also say the co-opted members in terms of the PSB. They might like to fill in a questionnaire to say what they think might be better done in scrutiny as well. Okay. Right, last item then is date and time of upcoming scrutiny panel. The next meeting is the 10th of June at 4 p.m, which is the Scrutiny Work Planning Conference. And then after that, the meeting after that is the 15th of July. So can I thank everybody for coming along and taking part? It's been a very useful session. And I will hopefully see you at the well, I'll see you at council on Thursday, but I hope to see you at the planning session at the 10th of June. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely, yeah.